Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and I saw a really good question from one of my viewers, and they said, hey, can you talk about the relics you need for every single fleet? And so we're going to kind of high level talk about this. Fleets and relics are one of those areas where I think there's a lot of misconceptions, and what we'll try to do is talk through, alright, here's where you need the fleet if you want it to do X. Here's what you need it to do if you want it to do Y. And if you're just like, I just need it, then we can talk about what that means. So we'll talk about these fleets, kind of break down the relic levels. First thing you guys can do is subscribe to this channel so you don't miss videos like this, where we try to break down, make SWGOH a little bit easier to understand. If you're ever interested, that link is down below, along with a link to our Discord server. Go check it out. I really appreciate all you guys continuing to keep the faith and support me through good, bad, thick, thin, yawning, shirts with sleeves, shirts without sleeves, whatever the case is. You guys are the best, and I couldn't have created the community that I have without you. So let's get in here, guys, and let's talk about some fleet relics. Alright, going back to our live. So, the first fleet we're going to cover is the Executor, and we're going to kind of move through the GL tier fleets first, because they're a little bit more interesting. They require you to invest gear in pilots to unlock them. So, we can it's almost a little bit easier to dissect these fleets because you know that there's certain things that you have to get regardless. And that's where we're going to start here with the Bounty Hunters. Bossk, Dengar, IG-88, and Boba Fett. They are required at... Bossk is a Relic 5 requirement. I have mine at Relic 7, but Relic 5 works. Relic 5, and then a Relic 8 for Boba. All of those are perfectly fine for these guys. The required levels is perfectly okay. In fact, I would recommend that for most of you starting out, because you're going to need to take Beskar Armor Mando and Cad Bane to Relic 5 as well. Now, why Relic 5, Phil? What does that do? Well, Beskar Armor Mando is a Relic 7 requirement for Bo-Katan Mandalore, so we've got to invest in him later down the road anyway. Cad Bane, Relic 5, because he's a Jedi Master Kenobi requirement. So what we're trying to do is, and you guys will notice this trend throughout this video, we're going to invest in characters that are needed for Galactic Legends up to the point that they're needed for the GL. Because what you want to do in this game, one of the ways that I've found really good progress being made, is sort of building something like Cad Bane to Relic 5 before you're going for Jedi Master Kenobi, because it checks a box off your list. It makes your Executor fleet better. It's a very good upgrade. You're going to be fine, right? Now, do you ever want extra relics on your pilots? Yes, absolutely. And here's the ones I would be looking at. Bossk, Dengar, Cad Bane, and Beskar Armor Mando. This kind of covers the two variants of the Executor lineup that you'll see. Sometimes you'll see Houndstooth, Punishing One, Razor Crest starting. Other times you're seeing Punishing One, Xanadu Blood, and Razor Crest starting. The extra relics go on those ships because they're kind of the highest priority. Personally me, I'm kind of looking at it and saying, I think Bossk and Dengar being the two largest priorities for those extra relics, simply because the Houndstooth combined with some of these other bounty hunter ships poses a massive threat. And obviously if Punishing One sticks around, things just get a lot worse. So if you're going to invest extra relics, those are the ships to do it on. Next, we've got the Profundity. And duh, right? Adrad kind of has to be Relic 9. Like that, okay. Yeah, he's got to be Relic 9. We can move on. Then you have the rest of the characters here. Dash, Cassian, Jin, Biston, and Hera Syndulla. All of them are fine at their required levels. We don't need to do anything else for this fleet to work. The other thing to remember with the Profundity fleet is that for those rebels, you have the Rebel Y-Wing as a part of this fleet, which does not need a pilot. So we're getting one back, right? There's one less thing you need to worry about with the Rebel fleet here. And then you have your JML levels on Chewbacca, Han, and Biggs. I do think having at least a semi-relic Biggs will be beneficial to help him be a little bit more of a tank. I think that does help make the fleet better. And then for Han and Chewie, just having them at Relic 6, if you somehow get Profundity before you get your Jedi Master Luke, I think that just will help this fleet tick a little bit more. If your Falcon doesn't deal enough damage, there's some problems. If it gets killed quickly, there's even bigger problems. So that's kind of where we're looking at here, keeping these relics consistent. Then we get into the don't need category. And your don't need category are just, listen, you can have relics on them. It's not going to make a massive impact one way or the other. Like your Phoenix characters. I got away with, Gear 11 Phoenix, Gear 8 Phoenix in some cases for the longest time, and I didn't really notice any significant difference of my Profundity. Similar situation with adding Scarith Rebel Pathfinder to Bist and G-Wing, or K2 to Jin and Cassian's. And then Wedge and Kyle, you just don't really use with Profundity. They're not really that great with that ship. So you don't need the relics there, personally. You can throw some extra gear if you want. There's times where I've used these as part of a fleet with Home 1, but you don't need a ton of gear. If you're looking to just like, hey, I'm kind of endgame, I don't have the relic materials, you can take them to like Gear 11, Gear 12. There's no Kyra Tech here, so it's pretty easy. If you are going to invest extra relic levels, it needs to be on Dash, Han, and Chewbacca. Those are the ones that I'm going to put my extra relics into. Again, you're starting the Rebel Y-Wing. Nothing else you can do. And then it's Dash, Han, and Chewie. So if you can keep your Dash, Han, and Chewbacca alive on the field longer, if they're dealing more damage, it gets really challenging to beat this fleet. I would be amiss if I didn't just say, hey, with Admiral Akbar, take him to Gear 12, no Kyra Tech. I would not be overly investing in Home 1, simply because I feel those resources at the moment are better spent elsewhere. But having that fleet as a placeholder until you get Profundity is a good idea. So Gear 11, Gear 12 for him, you're not going to break the bank. It's a little bit of core gear that you get a lot of anyway. So we don't need to go much more there. Next, we've got the Leviathan. And Darth Revan, he's a Relic 9 requirement. Then you have your required relic levels of Sith Trooper, Sith Empire Trooper, Sith Assassin, Darth Maul. The required relic levels are perfectly fine here. Sith Assassin especially. She does not need any extra relics now. That is kind of a thing of the past. You're better off just sticking with that requirement of Relic 5, with the other guys here going to Relic 7. Relic 7, you'll see, will be a common theme here, where we're going to do that with Darth Malgus, and we're going to do that with Sith Marauder. With Darth Malgus, he's an important part of this team, really good character for GAC and Territory Wars. Sith Marauder is a Relic 7 requirement for Sith Eternal, so you may as well just friggin' build him while you're doing this Leviathan if you don't already have Sith Eternal Emperor. It just helps you out. Speaking of Sith Eternal Emperor then, your Emperor Palpatine and Royal Guard, if you are going to end up using Emperor Shuttle, the Sith Eternal Relic levels are perfectly fine for these two. We don't need to do anything else there. They're, Emperor Palpatine Relic 7, Royal Guard Relic 3, you're going to be okay, right? We can, you will survive. Now, extra relics in this fleet, you want them to go on Marauder, Trooper, and Malgus. And the reason why we're picking those characters is because those are your starting trios. The B-28 Extinction Bomber, the TIE Dagger, and Fury class. That's your starting lineup for the Executor. It's pretty nailed on. If you are going to invest extra relics, those are the characters you do it on. Particularly looking at B-28 and Darth Malgus, keeping those on the field longer, in my personal opinion, can completely shift the fight. Where TIE Dagger, not that TIE Dagger doesn't pose problems, but even at Relic 9, I don't think there are some counters to that won't really be impacted by the relic levels on Sith Trooper. But Marauder and Malgus with higher relics poses a threat. Alright, now we're down into we've got some, harder decisions here. So, we have the Galactic Republic fleet, and we're going to start with General Kenobi there, the Negotiator. Relic 8 is good enough here. Relic 9 can be really nice, but more likely than not, Relic 8 is perfectly good here. Then, your Bad Batch guys for the Marauder, Jedi Knight Anakin, get them to their Galactic Legend level requirements. For the Bad Batch, it's Relic 5. For Anakin, it's Relic 7. Here's where I'm going to pause. That is the, alright, I'm building for the Executor counter. I'm going to try to counter Leviathans. You need these, you might even need more relics than I've got here. If you're just trying to have a strong Galactic Republic fleet, we can lower the gear threshold. Now, again, Jedi Knight Anakin is a Relic 7 requirement for Sith Eternal. The Bad Batch are a Relic 5 requirement for Lord Vader. But if you're like, I'm really starved for stuff, can I get away with Gear 12s? Sure. Just lower your standard then of what you can expect this fleet to be capable of beating. You know, don't be expecting to kill some massively relict Executor fleet with a Gear 12 Marauder. Continuing down here, you've got the Relic 5 is enough. And that's your endurance. That's where my Mace Windu is. He does great. Plo Koon, Ahsoka, 5s, Rex. Relic 5, again, good enough for them. Extra Relic levels obviously will benefit them, you know, between Plo, Ahsoka, and Rex that are all Galactic Legend requirements for GL Ahsoka. So, excuse me, very unprofessional to yawn. You know, they're needed for Ahsoka, so you're going to end up putting extra stuff there anyways. 5s, I have him for that Clone Trooper mission. And then Mace Windu, again, is a Relic 3 requirement for Jedi Master Kenobi. He was part of the Naboo raid, so I leveled him up. But I think with him, if you're going to try to beat Executors, you do want some extra relics there because we need a stronger endurance. With Clone Sergeant, skip. His ship is one of the worst in the game because it has one of the highest reinforcement priorities where it will come out first regardless of the circumstances, which is just mental. So skip it. Don't put it in your lineups. It's not worth it. From an extra relic perspective here, you are looking at Anakin and the Marauder crew. I think that's the biggest area we're looking at those extra relics. 5s and CT Rex, both also good options, but I felt focusing here was probably the most important for those extra relic levels. And very similar to the Rebels, your Galactic Republic also has a crewless ship in the Y-Wing, right? It's there, it works. We're going to want to make sure that you have that. Again, no relic levels required since there's no pilot, but something that we do want to note. Next, you've got your Separatists. And listen, the Separatist fleet, in my opinion, is one of the most free-to-play friendly fleets in the game. You've got Relic 7 General Grievous. He does need the relic levels. It does make the Vulture droids better. It will improve that ship significantly. Then you have your Geonosians, and you guys kind of see, like, it's just lols. Mine at Gear 12 they're fine. I don't use this fleet a ton. With relics, they're obviously a better fleet, but it's not one that I'd say you need to be going crazy on. And again, speaking of crewless ships, you've got the Hyena Bomber and Vulture Droid, both of whom are crewless. So this is kind of why this fleet is so good for free-to-play. It's very easy to build, doesn't require a lot of gear to be extremely successful at what it does. So I wanted to make sure we get that there, that you can equip extra relics if you really feel strongly about it, but it's not something that I feel you need to be like rushing to do. It's just not worth the hassle. All right, next we've got the Empire. Now you've got two capital ships here, Grand Admiral Thrawn's Chimera and Grand Moff Tarkin's Executrix. Both are good options. Both have their pluses and minuses, and depending on the fleet you're facing, some are better than the others. So we're going to start with your Darth Vader and your TIE Fighter pilot. These two are required at Relic 7 for Executor. So you're going to end up having them high relic anyway, so good enough, right? Then you've got Palpatine, Grand Inquisitor, Iden, and Fifth Brother. And I kind of say this Relic 5 minimum there. I think that obviously gets pushed because Emperor Palpatine is a Relic 7 requirement. For you to do the Reva mission, you need Relic 7 Inquisitors. But I think if you're looking at this and saying, hey, can I use the ship? Relic 5 is a good stop, like, all right, minimum threshold. And that's where my Iden Versio is. I'd love to get her up, but I just haven't had the resources to do it. But all of these characters kind of benefit from that ability to perform well, right? These ships are all really good, and their relics make the ship better. Then you have your, alright, second sister. You're going to get her for Grand Inquisitors anyway, so it is what it is. And then we get to the lower gear, right? We kind of get to your lower gear and your extras. So Death Trooper, Royal Guard, Gar Saxon, Imperial Super Commando, Shore Trooper. We can kind of skimp out on the gear. They don't need anything crazy. They're perfectly fine with Gear 11, Gear 12, even below that, depending on where you're at in the game. Listen, it's not that they aren't some good ships and they don't have some interesting things. It's more so that your relics going on the other ones are more important. Like, if you told me that you're getting Gar and Imperial Super Commando to relics, but you don't have an Iden Versio at relic levels, I'm going to punch you in the mouth. Like, we come on now. And then finally, your extra relics. I'm looking at putting them on the Scythe, Iden, and TIE Fighter Pilot. This TIE Fighter Pilot's an interesting one, but the thought process there is extra dodge chance, which can screw up a lot of counters. Obviously, Iden, the dodge chance, the offense. And then with the Scythe, it's because that's the high priority target that most of us just go for immediately. So having extra relics on 5th Brother and Grand Inquisitor will make that a little bit more challenging to pull off. Alright, next we have the Resistance. And we're going to start off here by saying this. And again, even with the Empire, you can get away with a lot less gear on this team. If you're not trying to counter Profundities and Executors, you can get away with a lot less gear. Gear 11, Gear 12s will do just fine. Seeing here to Resistance fleet, and what I will say here, in my personal opinion, this fleet is not worth building until you go for Rey. Before that point, it's not really worth going crazy on this fleet because it's good, it's just not great. It's where it is in the list for a reason. So for the first 7 characters you see here, Holdo, Rose, Resistance Trooper, Finn, Poe, Scavenger Rey, and Resistance Pilot. The Rey relic requirement levels are good enough for them. No more needs done. They're perfectly fine. The first one that I'm kind of looking at and saying, hey, we've got to build this girl up is Zori Bliss. Zori's a big part of this team. She's that first reinforcement. Really, really important that we talk about that. In terms of extra relics, then, you're going to want to go with these characters. These are your starting pilots. Finn and Scavenger Rey in the Millennium Falcon. Poe in his X-Wing. And then Rose Tico and Resistance Trooper inside of the Star Fortress. So, your extra relics go there to potentially get that opening play off. Get Zori out sooner with more reinforced, with more characters in the field. And that obviously makes for a much more challenging counter. So, if you're going to throw extras, it's kind of like on all these characters that just suck. But some things just have to be done. I did completely forget to miss here. I'm glad I'm circling back that the Empire fleet also has a crewless ship in Tide Bomber. So, just kind of, again, wedge that into your thoughts on these fleets that, while it seems very relic intensive, there are a couple that have some of those crewless ships that do make up a big difference in your ability to play. Right? They do. Those crewless ships are a lifesaver. Alright, and then we get to the First Order. So General Hux, Relic 5 minimum. I think Relic 5 is a great stopping point. Mine is Relic 8, but not for the fleets. Otherwise, when you go through the list of pilots here, what you're going to see is that you can kind of just keep them at where they're required for Kylo, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. I don't think you need to go any crazier than that. It's a good fleet. It's kind of run its course at the moment with some of the counters that have come in. But yeah, keep them at the Kylo relic levels and you're going to be fine. Again, very similar to the Resistance fleet. You are not to be building this before you get Kylo, just like you're not building that one before you get Rey. If you are going to spend extras, my recommendations are on these characters here. They make up your core ships at the start of battle. their relics will drive extra damage and speed that, can really help the First Order kind of get a leg up in some of those fleet fights. Now, there's a couple of characters that you may have thought I've forgotten about. Listen, your Karth and T3, Young Lando L3, Jedi Consular, they don't really have a great home. They're not that fantastic. Gear 11 to 12 is more than enough, especially I'm looking at like T3 and Karth, where you're going to be using them as part of the Ebon Hawk to counter Executor fleets. You need to have at least a little bit of gear that it can survive a turn, right? We want to be able to survive a turn. And then finally, I have to ask the question. Red 5, when? When the hell are we getting Red 5? It has been way too long. I just had to tease it there. Let me know your thoughts. Does this kind of help you guys understand where those relic levels go, right? I think I kind of went more so in saying, hey, a lot of them you can kind of stick to the GL Rex. If you're going to add extra runs, this is where you go. And just like overall then, to kind of, finish this off. The less relics you put on these fleets, the more likely your opponent can off-meta counter them. So there's this double-edged sword where, because you're trying to save a buck, your opponent now also gets the chance to save one, barring that they actually attack and do their stuff. And then, again, if you're building one of these other fleets where maybe, it's not Profundity or Leviathan, maybe it's like your Galactic Republic, if you're trying to counter those A-tier, S-tier fleets, then yes, you need to have those extra relics. You need to be maxed out. But if you're just trying to use this to beat Malevolence, to beat the Resistance, even going up to some of the Empire fleets, then we don't need to worry, right? Then you're going to be fine with lower gear, simply because the fleet in and of itself is very good. So I hope that helps, guys. Let me know your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.